Whenever cars, cartels, and races are mentioned, everybody would have to agree that the unforgettable series Fast and Furious comes to mind. But apart from this well-loved series, there are few movies that attempted to reach its level of success worldwide. Need for Speed ring a bell? And will we be able to see more of Tobey Marshall in a second movie? Here's what we know so far. In an attempt to recreate a movie about cars just as successful as Fast and Furious, DreamWorks decided to choose the hit game series of the early 2000s, Need for Speed, as source material for their own movie about cars. The story focuses on Tobey Marshall, a mechanic who is an underground race driver at night and spends 2 years in jail after being framed for a murder he did not commit. Back then, he was a financially struggling mechanic for a change in life, but his ex-partner, the rich ex-NASCAR star Dino Brewster, decided to betray him. Marshall failed to get the partnership with Julia Bonet, a car broker, which led to Brewster using tricks up on his sleeve that would leave him unscathed in the failure. This left Marshall behind bars alone for a crime he did not do. As he was spending his sentence in jail, he was already planning his long-wished vengeance. Now toughened by prison and vengeance, Marshall attempts to get back to Brewster by joining in an underground and lucrative car race, the De Leon, where he will be facing up against the country's most notorious and ruthless racers. But this would be difficult because the vicious Dino Brewster put a bounty on his head after knowing he got out of jail. Not only would that make his plan different, but the police were also on his trail. Just like any other happy ending, he got his own loyal crew who was willing to take risks for him, as well as Bonet, willing to help him to the starting line alive, kicking and hitting that like button. Double wink. The movie honestly seemed to be something that repetitive and predictable, and everyone thought it would flop, and even its Rotten Tomatoes score did not even reach past 25%. But then, something happened that changed the momentum for this movie. Although the movie was deemed financially successful, the domestic haul for it did not even reach $45 million. And with a budget of $66 million, this was considered to be a failure. However, this did not say anything about its success internationally. Overseas, specifically in China, it was well received, to the point of it reaching a box office hit of more than $200 million. Financially speaking, a sequel would be a smart idea, especially if it was well loved internationally. The movie was produced with the idea that a franchise would happen, given that it was heavily inspired by the success of the franchise Fast and Furious. However, because it did not hit the American box office, the idea of a franchise or even a second movie was dismissed. But here's the thing. Would it hurt if the production team considered the international success of the movie? Financially wise, it seemed to be plausible, and DreamWorks would not lose anything if they tried to franchise it. Hollywood is obsessed with attempting to break through the Chinese box office, given that it's the second largest next to the American box office. This is because of how much money the Chinese box office can bring to Hollywood. This was not the first time that China was able to save Hollywood films. The box office was able to save films like Warcraft and Terminator Genisys. All of the films that we mentioned were able to acquire dubious amounts of fortune off of the Chinese box office. With all of these being said, there is a conflict in terms of the viability of making a franchise out of Need for Speed, given that it was domestically a failure. All of these are possible and up for the table, and it will only be up to the producers and studio if they're willing to test the waters and proceed to make it its own sequel. Now, are you noticing something? Ever since films were created, it was already difficult to create adaptations based on video games. This was first revealed during the 1993 Super Mario Bros., which was a total epic failure, given that it went through a messy production and the entire feel of the movie is just so different from the cheerful game. The following adaptations, like Street Fighter and Double Dragons, were terrific duds as well. This is where the critical reputation of video game adaptations started. To be fair, creating a movie out of video games is pretty difficult, given that films, most of the time, cannot capture that feeling and pacing a video game can have. The anticipation, the excitement, and the whole feel of the video can sometimes not be incorporated into the film. However, in recent years, where studios have again attempted to make a film out of video games, the genre has started to give films that are worthy of a watch. Thanks to the success of Castlevania, Detective Pikachu, The Witcher, and Arcane, the world was shown the big possibility of this genre being successful. The genre did get better, and although a perfect movie has yet to come, this is already a huge step. Now, although this is a piece of good news for the studios who are planning to make films out of video games, this does not really say anything significant for Need for Speed. Originally, a year after its 2014 release, the second movie was rumored to be happening in 2015. This was a surprise for the domestic viewers, given that it was a drastic flop in America. But the second movie was in talks between EA and the China Movie Channel Program Center. The idea was to bring Need for Speed internationally and become successful. They wanted to create an image for Need for Speed with the help of its popularity in China. In addition to this news, Aaron Paul said that he would be willing to become a part of the second movie if circumstances allow him. But he said that his participation would be up to the content of the second movie, as he still does not have any idea on what route the second movie would go, if ever it pushes through production. Even after the rumors of it having a second movie in 2015, up to this day, there are no further details about this plan going through. But if Aaron Paul is willing to reprise his role as Toby Marshall, then there is a possibility that the second movie could compensate for the flaws of the first movie, as well as give it what it's lacking. Since then, news about Need for Speed 2 has been scarce and almost non-existent, which brings us to the conclusion that the second movie will not be coming around anytime soon. This does not negate the possibility of it though, given that the Chinese box office might take an interest in this again and push through the decision of making a new film. But if we are to be truly honest, the possibility of a second movie is really low, now that everyone seems to forget about the first film. Although a second movie does not seem so possible at the moment, studios may take it as a push to create a remake of the film. Not only will this be a part of the redemption of the genre, but this would also make up for the flaws of the second movie. Some fans also suggested that instead of creating a movie out of the game, you should smash that subscribe button and ring that notification bell down below. Gotcha twice. But seriously though, many, including myself, think that it's best if they turn this whole baby into one spunky series. This is because the film story is much better if it's told through a multiple episode series rather than a film, and they'd be able to elaborate more on the thrilling adventures rather than trying to aggressively condense it into a 2 to 3 hour film. Now, that seems exciting, huh? Thoughts, anyone? You will love these videos.